Hi everyone, welcome back to Go Together Go Far. On today's video, we're going to talk about an emergency kit for a family of 4. So this is a basic disaster supply kit for 2020. I know right now most people are concerned with the coronavirus. It is the end of March here in Ohio and we are currently on lockdown. So it's helpful that I have some of these items, but it's not necessary due to that event. The more likely scenario, depending on where you happen to live, is that you have a hurricane or a power outage or a tornado. That may drive wanting you to keep some of these items stocked in your basement. That's why I'm in my basement right now. I'm going to kind of show you a couple things that I keep on hand in case there is a larger emergency that we need to be prepared for. With that said, let's go ahead and get started. So, if you need to shelter in place, depending on whatever your local emergency is, almost every time the number one thing you need is water. So the current recommendations from ready.gov, which is put out by the U.S. Homeland Security, recommends 1 gallon per person per day. So if you're planning on a family of 4 for 3 days, I need 12 gallons of water. I happen to do that by rotating stocks of primarily bottled waters just from wherever. These ones that I have from Kirkland, each one of these bottles is 500 milliliters. There's 40 bottles in a case, and I have 6 cases. So if I do the quick math, works out to 31 gallons of water, which is about 8 days, a little less than that, which should do us fine for 3 or 4 days if we don't have water for a couple days. Primarily, I'm interested in making sure I have water for 3 days. This way, I have a little extra. There are other options. There is stuff like this, which is emergency drinking water. This is much more shelf stable than the bottled water. This is the kind of stuff that gets used in life rafts. You can buy it in smaller sachets and bigger ones as well. There's not a lot of water in here, so this is like dire emergency stuff, but I happen to like to have a little bit on the shelf. That way, if this stuff ever goes bad, I got this. So that's number 1 is water. Let's talk about the next couple things. So if we assume that you already have plenty of shelter, because you're sheltering in place, and you've got water covered, what's the next thing you need to think about? And generally that's food, right? So if you're a prepper, preppers will often tell you times what you need to have on hand is rice and beans, which are great options. Depending on what your goal is or what it is that you think you're trying to get ready for, that may be overkill. In my family, what we're trying to have basically on hand is about 3 or 4 days worth of food and water. And this is primarily for just in case, right? I just don't know what it's going to be for, but I'm probably not going to have to live for weeks in my house all for rice and beans. So what we have on hand is a little more obtainable by your average person. So we keep a fully stocked pantry with plenty of canned goods from a local grocery store. We also can some of our own fruit and vegetables and spaghetti sauce and other things just for normal health reasons, but we keep a good supply of that down here in the basement, as well as a good number of packages of just microwavable rice. Now, this is more difficult if you don't have power, but you could get by. If you're interested in something a little more long-term that you can store for a while, you can look at something like a 72-hour kit like this one. Links for these down below. And these vary in price range depending on the contents and what you're looking for. You can also look for something like this from Mountain House. They make all kinds of varieties, anywhere from $15 to $30, depending on what it is you're looking for. Again, but with most of these, you also do need water on hand, so that is still water, still number 1. And then finally, I actually keep some of these kind of SOS emergency rations on hand just in case we need something and there is no other options if I just need to rip something open and start eating. So that's pretty far-fetched. But again, if you're in a hurricane or a flood situation and this is all you have and you can't run to the grocery store and potentially your fresh water supply isn't running real great or you're under boil advisories or something along those lines, this all works great. If this information is useful to you, I ask you to do a couple things. 1, check out ready.gov when you're done watching the video. They have lots of other options that are on there. And 2, go ahead and subscribe. That'll help me out and hopefully we'll do some more content. Let's take a look at a couple more items that you don't want to miss. There's one in here that I think everybody will be very interested in. So if you've got water and food and shelter taken care of, let's talk about medicine or medical stuff. First thing you're going to want to have on hand is a first aid kit. Pretty self-explanatory. Doesn't need to be a massive kit, but you need something basic on hand just to take care of cuts and scrapes and that kind of thing. You're also going to want some alcohol, right? Make sure whatever the situation is, you got some way to help sanitize some stuff. And you're going to want some rubber gloves. Those should be standard in everybody's house. Now, there's a couple extra things that I've added to our 72-hour kit just because of the current coronavirus situation. So one of those is children's medication. So not a ton. I've just added a bottle or two of children's Tylenol, and I think one's a liquid and one's a solid, because I don't have a good way to dose from the adult stuff. So having a couple of the children's stuff on hand is really useful for us because we have 2 small kids. Additionally, I've added a few bottles of Pedialyte in the event that someone does happen to be sick when this event occurs, or they get sick after that event occurs. I don't want to have to run out and go get something that could potentially help hydrate them in the event that they are really, really sick. Finally, on this, if you haven't bought these yet, and I know right now they're difficult to find, these N95 masks. Again, we don't want to take these away from our first responders in our hospitals, but I have a couple on I have 2. And when this is all over, I'll probably have a few more, like most of us. But these are useful to keep on hand in case you run into scenarios that you need them. Finally, something I'm going to recommend that you honestly do need to go take a look at the Amazon affiliate links down below, and that is for this item. This is a NOAA weather radio, and this is kind of an all-in-one version of it. They're not that expensive. They're $35 depending on the model you look for. But what this is that this is solar powered, crank powered. It can also be plugged into the wall, and it's got batteries. Weather radio. So if the power's out and you're having trouble hearing what's going on, or if there's a tornado or hurricane, this will help. Additionally, with this one, most of these nowadays, or the good ones, have USB ports in the pack. So you can charge this, power this, and charge your phone with it as well if you need that. As well as it's got lights and some other emergency stuff. This one in particular has an external antenna that you can clip into it, that you can run up to the roof of your house or something if you need help getting a signal. So definitely check these out. If nothing else, this is something that every household needs, regardless of coronavirus or what. This is great for tornadoes and hurricanes and other disasters depending on where you live. So there's some basic medical supplies and some other stuff that you should check out. Again, if this is really helping you, check out the affiliate links. Click the like button or click the subscribe if you haven't done so. Let's check out a couple more items that I think ready.gov has on their list. These are a little more specific items for certain types of disasters. So there are 3 super important things that are not easy to show, but you want to hear these. So 1, prescriptions. So if your family or you or your family need a prescription, you may want to keep a supply of that on hand in the event that there's some sort of emergency that you need extra of it. 2, if you have an infant and you need formula or some other infant product, that may not be readily available, diapers or something, you're going to want to keep a supply of that on hand. And finally, don't forget about your furry friends. If you've got pets, you may need a supply of pet food on hand to take care of them for 3 or 4 days. So that's often overlooked. That said, go take a look at ready.gov. They'll give you advice on things like how keeping tea lights on hand and crank radios that double as flashlights, and some of these things that can be very useful if you need to get by for 3 or 4 days. Also, check out my Amazon links below. They'll give you where to get some of the great deals on things like that type of crank radio, side-loom sticks, and emergency whistles, and some of those other things that are probably just generally good to keep on hand or keep in your bug-out bag. In which, by the way, if you don't have a bug-out bag, check out my video that I'll link to here. Also, check out the comments. There's some great comments in there that I think will be worthwhile to most of us that are still learning some of this stuff. And all that said, thank you, everybody. See you next time.